Ready.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. My name is Ross Benjamin. It's Thursday, February the 16th. And like every Thursday afternoon, I'm joined by that handsome fella on the other side of me. His name is Mr. Doug Upstone of Doc Sport. You, buddy. DocSports.com. One of the finest handicappers in the country today. Doug, how are you, my friend?
Ross, I am doing extremely well. If you recall, when we were talking on Monday, I said that made some tweaks and stuff like that to college basketball and some different things going on, and I'm happy to report right now as we sit here this week, 5-1, up
Nice.
over $1,600. Had a nice 7-unit play yesterday on Texas A&M.
Nice.
Who I think had scored 4 points after 11 minutes of the game.
Yeah. I saw that they were way behind early. They were down like 10 at the half, something like that, Doug?
Yeah, I think it was 9. But the thing is that they didn't get blown up. They should have, and they could have. Yeah. But their defense kind of held them in, and then they scored right away to start the second half and got them into the game. But they really didn't eat. I don't think their first lead was like with 2 minutes to go, or a lead of more than a basket. So it wasn't easy, but you know what, got the job done. And so that's going really well right now, and I'll hopefully, just like say, take it right through April, and I'm good to go, Ross. And I know you feel the same way.
I do feel the same way. I need to turn it around, though, since last Friday. I've struggled, Doug, a bit. And, like you do on occasion, I do as well. You got to be transparent. You got to tell people we brag when we win, right? But the difference between us and guys on this channel and other handicappers is we fess up when we're not doing well. One thing I have done well on, and it's continued to pay dividends for me, is my college basketball totals, which I'm 26-11 with my last 37. That dates back to March 11th of 2022. So been on a nice run there. Don't give out a ton of them, but when I have, I've been pretty much locked in on these college basketball totals, and I do have 2 going tonight. Again, we're taping on Thursday, folks. By the time you see this, it might be too late to dabble into those, but you can find my picks at rbwins.com and also Doug at docsports.com. Doug, Alabama goes down against Tennessee, and you had some interesting side notes you wanted to bring up in reference to that loss. Alabama being the number 1 team in the country, and we've seen plenty of these situations this year where a team gets ranked number 1 and they immediately get knocked off.
Yeah, I mean, it's been crazy. Alabama losing last night. They committed 19 turnovers against Tennessee's. I mean, Tennessee has a great defense. Nobody's going to question that. And I'm sure they were even more fired up coming off a couple of losses and, not playing extremely well lately. But they just were sloppy and just totally out of their game. And Alabama's now is the 8th different number 1 team this season to lose. Okay, and that ties the all-time. Now that's AP, by the way, Associated Press poll. They're the 18th team to lose, which is the most since the 1992-93 season. So that ties the record. And AP voting goes back to 1948-49, Ross.
Wow.
I mean, that's even older than us, for God's sake. So,
I hope so. Anyway.
No, I'm joking about that. But so it's crazy as to, and it kind of goes along, though, with what the season's been like. Okay. What's the one thing that has been missing? A dominant team. Okay, or several dominant teams. There aren't any this year. Okay, and so this is just, I think, a byproduct of that. Every team has a flaw or multiple flaws from that standpoint. So it's just, the question I have, and get your thought on this, is, by now you start to see things. We're 2 weeks away from the end of the regular season for the bigger schools. The smaller schools are basically 1 week away, for end of their regular season, and then the conference tournaments are coming up. So I think we're just going to go into these conference tournaments kind of like, not really sure what's going to happen, and maybe something ultimately evolves out of that. What do you think?
Yeah, especially in like a conference like the Big 12 or the SEC or the Big 10, where they seem to be pretty balanced from top to bottom for the most part, especially the Big 12. Anybody could win those conference tournaments, and you might get a sleeper that comes out of that whole batch that gets an automatic bid that ordinarily wouldn't have if the season were to end today. But I just wonder, is there a team like a North Carolina that nobody expected to make that run to the Final Four last year? Kansas, who caught fire at the right time, weren't getting a lot of accolades going into the tournament last year and end up winning the national title. Is there a team out there like that? And I stopped and thought about that for a bit. I mean, there's a couple you can make a case for. I mean, speaking of Kansas, to me, they're gelling right at the right time. I've seen them over the last few games now. They've had some exceptions on the road this year where they have not played well, but you could see the overall talents there, Doug, and they certainly passed my eye test. You had them the other day. Nice play on the road, Kansas laying points, and they won quite handily at that. So, a team like Baylor has been coming on. In the Big 10, Purdue now has lost 3 times. They got a big game tonight as we speak. You might know the result of this by the time you see this video tomorrow, possibly. But Purdue looks beatable to me. Tennessee, a team that was number 1 at one time, if I recollect correctly. I mean, Doug, they played terrific defense. We saw it last night. They forced many turnovers from Alabama, as you touched upon with me off air, and I won't steal your thunder there. But at the same time, there's times they have trouble shooting the ball into the ocean, let alone a basket. So, I mean, I don't see a team like that winning just all on defense, and they don't do enough consistently on the offensive end of the floor for me to take them, or consider them, I should say, a serious contender to win it all.
Yeah, I would agree with you on all those points. You would think it would come out of, it's going to come out of essentially one of the power conferences, but to say which one, there's just nothing there. And the thing that when we get to this time of year that I always ask myself is, what team can win 6 in a row? Okay, because that's what it takes. You got to win 6 games in a row. And who are those teams? And as you said, you can make the case virtually of any top team. Okay, right now. So if you want to you could take the top 15 right now. You could make a case of any of those teams. You could. It'd be hard pressed to say that you'd be sold on even winning 4 times. Okay, yeah. A lot of those teams. Obviously it's going to depend on who they play. Different circumstances are going to come up. Once we have the seeds and all that comes into play, there might be some clarity in there, along with what we see, from conference tournaments, because among the things that we see anymore, it's not every year, but to look at how they perform in the conference tournament. Those that win them more often than not lately now again have started to perform well in the regular March Madness tournament, the big day, so to speak. Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
so I the way it's just funny though to get to this point of the season and kind of feel this way. We're just so used to, but with same things with transfers and going here, going there. Every year is literally a new year with these teams, even more so than in the past. Before it was the one and dones that everybody talked about. Now it's just all the transfers. Where it just takes time to formulate your team. The one team though that if I was going to look at anybody right this second, I would look at Baylor. That's one team that, to me, that has gotten better, gotten healthier, and improved as the season has wore on, and been impressive often.
Yeah. Arizona in the Pac-12.
Yep.
UCLA in the Pac-12, teams that keep an eye. The Pac-12 is the conference that had a good tournament last year, if I recall correct.
Yes, yeah.
And the Big Ten is the one.
It wasn't always exciting, but it's gotten a lot better the last several years than what they used to have. They used to have. Well, part of the problem before, though, as you recall, is that before they went to Vegas, they would play it at like in LA, and there would be a horde of 12 to 1,500 people there, for some of those semifinal games, or I mean quarterfinals, and sometimes even semifinal games. Yeah. So yeah, no, they made a smart move going to Vegas, and change the whole level of excitement that goes into how those games are played. So that it's a positive, and I mean there's still some other teams that are going to be out there that we're going to look at, but that'll be a couple of weeks down the road when we have more and better information.
We'll do an NCAA tournament show here, folks, and we'll have a cavalcade of all our guys on the show at that time. So you'll have to deal with Joey D'Amico and Sean Higgs, and Jesse's an angel, and myself, and you'll be hard pressed to get a word in edgewise, Doug, and you'll see how I feel, even though
it's really what's really a good thing is that, or maybe it's a sad commentary, when I come off as the most sane person of that group. Okay. That seems to be a problem.
Hey, you know what?
Have created.
Each guy brings their own element, including yourself and myself, that makes these shows what they are. And I appreciate each one of those guys. When I say things of the nature I just said, it's more in joking and kidding, because these guys are personalities and they're good handicappers too. And one guy is laid back, the other two are very talkative. Then there's me and you, a little combination of both. So, it's what makes these shows great. And again, I look forward to doing some of those shows during March Madness coming up. And one conference, I don't see somebody winning 6 in a row coming out of this conference, but the Mountain West, who we're going to talk about in our 2 free picks today. We're going to be covering the Air Force and Wyoming game, and Doug will be taking a look at the New Mexico and help me out. San Jose State game played at San Jose. The Mountain West, you look at possibly 4 teams coming out of that conference this year to make the NCAA tournament: Utah State, San Diego State, Boise State, and what's the other one? Nevada. So, and then there's some other competitive teams in that conference that can make some noise in the conference tournament. The other thing I wanted to mention to you, Doug, is you mentioned teams that go all the way and win their conference tournaments. It used to be the norm that they didn't do well in the upcoming NCAA tournament. And in recent years, that hasn't been the case, but keep an eye on, don't lose faith in some teams that have had an outstanding regular season and they get knocked off and upset in the first round of the conference tournament. Some of those teams in years past have done very, very well. So don't get all caught up in the conference tournament, winning the conference tournament, especially if a team has to go win 4 games in 4 days. Then they have to turn around and play less than a week later in the NCAA tournament. And more times than not, playing against a lower seeded team, they're very vulnerable in those spots. So little things we'll talk about in that regard, Doug, unless you want to add some more thoughts to that.
Yeah, no, nothing in particular. One team that I have not seen this year, but I want to, and in fact, I might try and watch them tonight. I got to look on my ESPN Plus app on that one, but is Florida Atlantic. They're 24-2. Okay, and I mean they're obviously a really good. You can't be 24-2 without being good. Okay, now nobody's going to accuse the Conference USA of being a great conference, but when you have that kind of a record, and if you get a low seed, for example, let's say they win their conference tournament, or at least get to the finals, they're a low seed and they play, let's just say a team that's not playing as well, okay, going into the tournament from a bigger conference, boy, that has the makings of a ripe, upset right there. Now they are 25th in the country by the polls right now, but I don't know that their strength of schedule is going to be that great. So I'd have to go and look to find out, where some of these quote unquote bracketologists have them at. Yeah. But we'll see. But that's an interesting team to me.
What do you do with a team like that if they lose in their conference tournament? You've had them they're ranked number 25 now. They fell out of the top 25 after they lost the UAB a couple weeks ago. 24-2, 23-1 in their last 24. They lost at Ole Miss in their second game of the season. Since then, they won 23 out of 24. That Conference USA, there's a few teams that I could see, if they win their conference tournament, could be a viable upset option in the first round of the tournament, namely UAB, North Texas, and FAU. I just wonder if FAU loses in their conference tournament, do they get an at-large bid? And again, I have to do further research like yourself to look at what's their RPI, number one, or whatever metrics they go by now. Also, what their non-conference schedule was. I mentioned they lost that game to Mississippi. And as we both know, Ole Miss is not a great team in the SEC right now. So, again, it's what makes for the intrigue when we enter March, right? It's an exciting challenge for us. And I think you would agree with me. I'm glad they're not handing me an NCAA tournament bracket sheet to fill out right now, because it would take a few days to decipher through that. So anyway, Doug, New Mexico and San Jose State. New Mexico, all of a sudden, is struggling. I mean, they've lost to the likes of Air Force and Wyoming, who are combined something like 7-17 in conference play, if not worse. Let's see, 4-10 and 3-11 would make 7-21 combined conference play. New Mexico lost to both of those teams recently, and now they go on the road to take on San Jose State. And will look like a miracle job being done at New Mexico by Rick Pitino Jr. All of a sudden, he's catching a lot of heat for losing to what's perceived to be vastly inferior opposition. What's your take here, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, you look at this team, they started the season 14-0. Okay. Yeah. I mean, they were the real deal. And in fact, they even won at St. Mary's earlier. I believe that was either early December or late November. But now they're 6-7 in the Mountain West. And in their last four, boy, they are circling the drain in a downward spiral, 0-4 straight up and against the spread. So what happened? Well, here's what happened. This team was pretty much an above average defensive team most of the year. But recently, in their last 7 contests, they've given up 81.2 points per game. Now, it's nothing to do specifically with injuries. Now, maybe some guys got some nicks and whatever, but I mean, it's not, nobody's missing games. So I think that falls on the players, but then it also falls on Richard Pitino, the coach. Now, if you follow his career, and especially more recently, when he was at Minnesota, where he was fired, okay, what was the one thing that almost always happened when he was there? Okay, is it got to February, latter part of the season, all of a sudden the Golden Gophers went down. Okay, we're seeing the exact same thing happen now in Albuquerque that we saw in Minneapolis. All right, so I guess we shouldn't be surprised, but yet to a certain degree, we still are. Now, San Jose State, on the other hand, Ross, they've actually moved ahead in the Mountain West Conference, ahead of New Mexico, because they're 7-6, and they've done it by this month. They're 3-1 straight up and against the spread, and in all 4 of those games, they were never a favorite. 3 dogs and a pick, okay, in those games. Now, one player to look for, and it is their best player, is Omari Moore. He averages 17 points per game, is their leading scorer, and he leads the team in assists, and he's 4th in rebounding. Now, he's 6'6", which is kind of a bigger guy for a guard, even at a college level, and especially at a school like that. But beyond him, though, what's kind of interesting, if you look at this team, their next 7 players in terms of scoring average between 5.6 to 9.8. So there's some nice balance. Now, more is the key. Nobody's going to question that. But, there's not much of a drop-off when they go to the bench, anything like that. So they're able to maintain a relatively high level of play for them. Now, the Spartans come in this one a solid 10-2 and 8-3 against the spread, winning by 9.5 points per game. New Mexico in true road games, 4-4 straight up. Now, when they played San Jose State at the Pit exactly a month ago, they won 75-55. But my opinion, 2 different teams today compared to then. Opening line in this one, Ross, a pick. Okay, that's what the opening line in this game was. Every word that you look. However, I found something that I like that really favors the home team, and here's what it is: When the line is +3 to -3, and a home team like San Jose State is off 2 straight conference wins, facing an opponent that just lost at home and scored less than 60 points, the home team in this case is 26-6 against the spread since 2018, winning by 6.6 points per game. So I'm going to say take the Spartans as a pick, okay? And take them over New Mexico, and as New Mexico falls to 0-5 straight up and against the spread.
I'll go out on a limb and say that 26-6 is even better when you look at the straight up numbers, based on them being a +6 point per game differential. Yep. So I would look into that even further, but it's still a great angle, Doug. And again, you're going to take the San Jose Spartans I was going to say on the money line, but they're a pick 'em.
You could.
Yeah, as a pick 'em over the struggling New Mexico Lobos team. I'm going to look at the Wyoming and Air Force game. Right now, Wyoming is a 3-point home favorite, and the total in this game is 35. I mentioned both of these teams recently knocked off New Mexico, but both aren't very good, Doug. I mean, Wyoming is 3-10 in conference play. I believe Air Force is 4-11 or somewhere in that area, well below 500 on each case. Both of these teams, I should say, played on January 17th at Air Force. And that game was an 82-74 Air Force win on the road at home, excuse me. And the game went well over the total of 129. The game was played at Air Force. Let me correct that. Both teams shot well above their season average in that game, with Air Force shooting 54%, Wyoming shooting 52%. Both teams converted in the high 80s and low 90s in terms of their free throw attempts. And Wyoming is coming off a 70-56 win at New Mexico as a 10-point underdog, and that game went under the total of 148.5. I mentioned that result because Wyoming's 0-3 straight up in ATS in their last 3 following a win, losing by 17 points per game. And they're also 3-0 to the over in their last 3 following an under in their previous game, with those games averaging a combined 149 points scored per game. Wyoming has also gone 8-0 to the over in their last 8 whenever there's been a total of 142.5 or less. And in the last 3 at home against Air Force, each one of those head-to-head battles went over the total. So I'm going to take a small chance here on the total. They've been working for me this year. Air Force and Wyoming over the total of 133.5. And Doug Upstone likes the San Jose Spartans as a pick 'em over the New Mexico Lobos on Friday night in college basketball. Doug, any final thoughts?
Yes, besides first of all, it's Doug Upstone at Doc Sports. Okay, so we'll get that out of the way. Like I said, I've been doing well in college. Hockey continues to do well. 4-1 this week in hockey. Hit the Boston Bruins the other night in an overtime win.
Yeah, there you go. One for the good
Dallas.
guys.
Yes, exactly on that one, and so that was good. So, and that's 23-14 the last 37. So on a good run there. Also in the NBA, just had a rough stretch coming around now. Hit 5 out of the last 8. Had a winner last night with Utah. Come from behind job to cover the spread at Memphis, so that was good. No action there now, but now we got the All-Star break and kind of regroup a little bit here and plan to make a huge run like I have done the last 2 years in particular after the All-Star break. So looking forward to that as well, Ross. How about yourself?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to Saturday in college basketball, the big card coming up. Like I said, Doug, right now my strong suit has been my college basketball totals, going 26-11 with my last 37 in that category. Still making a pretty good profit since August 10th of last year in all sports, although that's taken a major hit since last Friday. But the last time this occurred, I bounced back with a enormous hot streak. So, folks, it's good to get in at the beginning of a hot streak, not wait till I'm 36-12 with my last 48. I think I'll start buying Ross's plays now. I'd like to tell you we can go 36-12 with the next 48 after that, but the odds are against us when that happens. So you need to trust a handicapper like one of us two or the other guys on this channel, even though if they're in a tailspin for a bit, bide your time a little bit. And as soon as you see them have a winning day, jump aboard, folks, because I could tell you the winning is going to happen, and it's going to happen in a big way. You're starting to see that happen with Doug right now. He was struggling a little bit, like he admitted to last week. Again, Doug's as transparent as I am. And now he's turned it around, and he's starting to roll 5-3 with his last 8 in the NBA. He just mentioned he hit 5 of his last 6 in college basketball. Is that correct?
Yep. 5 and 4 straight winning days to boot.
And 4 straight winning days. He even won an overtime game. We don't have to hear one of Doug's rants on losing in the overtime. So open up that black book and put in a W when it comes to overtime results, Doug.
Only 100 more to be even. That's all I got to say.
In any event, for Doug Upstone of DocSports.com and Ross Benjamin of RBWins.com, we like to wish each and every one of you all the very best. Take care and God bless, folks.